In this episode of Pugs Picks Locks, we're going to be talking about warded locks. What are they? How do they work? And most importantly, how to open them. Hey folks, welcome back to Pugs Picks Locks. Before we get started, if you're new here, feel free to go ahead and click that subscribe button, maybe hit the notification bell to receive notification of when we release more content like this. And if you like this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, that like button, and leave a comment or a question if you have them down below. All right. Warded locks, I mean. So, warded locks, what are they? And why are they such a challenge for beginners? And you're going to see that in the end, this is actually going to be an easy lock to open. But it can be quite challenging for beginning lock pickers simply because they haven't come across them before. Many of us were introduced to lock picking via those clear acrylic locks that show the pins inside and as you're trying to pick the lock and everything. And that's what we know a padlock to be, or a lock to be, a pin tumbler lock to be. And then we see one of these types of locks, and it has this weird keyway shaped like a zigzag lightning bolt. This one is. And we go ahead and we're used to the idea that you tension a lock. But we try to tension this one and that keyway just spins. We can't apply any tension. And so our normal approach to the lock, to opening a lock, now doesn't work. And we're like, what the heck? So the way a warded lock works, and I'll be throwing up a diagram that I did not draw. A very dear friend of mine drew it for me because I can't draw to save my life. So this diagram shows that you can see that this lock is made up of metal wafers. I'm assuming this is a stainless steel of some sort, or maybe, it's just some cheap stamped steel. Who knows? But they're made up of wafers that are stacked together and then held in place by rivets, right? The way a warded lock works is that some of those wafers have completely round openings on the inside of it, cut in the center of the wafer. And that completely round opening lets the key spin freely within it, right? Some of the other wafers have a more rectangular or oval shaped hole cut in them. And that rectangular or oval shaped hole will only allow the key to spin if the notch in the key lines up perfectly with that wafer. So those rectangular / oval shaped wafers, the wafers with rectangular or oval shaped holes in them, those are wards. They are warding against the key being turned. And that's why we call it a warded lock. Now, generally speaking, and there are exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, it's only the very tip of the key that is actually actuating the mechanism to release the shackle to open the lock. It's only the very tip. There are some that might have two mechanisms within them, and so it's the tip and then maybe the very next protrusion. So you can see on this one, it might be the tip and then the very next protrusion that actuate the mechanism to release the shackle and let the lock be opened. But again, you can't actually actuate that mechanism if the cuts in the key do not match the wafer, how the wafers are arranged within it. Does that make sense? Leave a comment down below if you need a better explanation, and I'll try to clarify things as best I can. All right, so let's leave the key here for a moment in case we need to reference it again. So that brings us to how to actually open this. Since it's generally the tip of the key, you can go and buy a set of skeleton keys or warded lock picks. These warded picks, these skeleton keys, come in various shapes. I think I got this set from Southord. Most of my lockpicking tools come from Southord. I'm pretty happy with their products. They've been good to me. So you can go out and purchase a set of warded lockpicks. And then my approach is generally to start with the largest size that will fit in the lock and then start working my way down. So in this case, it's this double cross that is the largest shape that will actually fit into this lock. And you can see that when I try to insert it, right now I have the keyway oriented. It's in a horizontal orientation. So when I try to insert the key, it won't go. This is actually the first ward of the lock. It won't let you even insert a tool or a key unless it is in a vertical orientation. And now you can insert it like a regular key, right? And you turn it like a regular key and boom, lock popped open. Assuming that the lock did not pop open, I would then start working my way through the rest of the picks. So the smaller cross-shaped one might be the next one that I try. And these are double cross shaped because it has a protrusion to work one of the mechanisms that actuates the lock and a second protrusion to actuate the second one. So assuming that there's two, but not always. So you might start there, and then you might try this single cross shape. And with the single cross shape, as opposed to the the single cross shape, just like the double cross, comes with two sizes here. So the single cross shape, it works. It'll turn. You can actually feel it working the mechanism. But the lock doesn't open. Why? Because there's two mechanisms in this lock that need to be actuated, which is why the double one worked and the single does not. If I pull with my index finger on the shackle, so I'm pulling the shackle as if I'm trying to pull it open, and then I'm pushing with my thumb and middle finger against the body of the lock, and then I turn, you could actually hear that click, right? You could hear that click as that mechanism opened. And when I push in on the shackle, you can hear that mechanism close and lock again. But because there's two mechanisms that actuate the lock, the single one doesn't work. Okay, so I would just work my way through my warded picks until I got hit one that worked. If I pull the key up and show that once again, you can actually make your own warded lock picks / skeleton keys by taking an old key from a warded lock and simply filing off or cutting off the protrusions along the shaft of the key, leaving only the tip that actually actuates it. And then you can get a second key and you can go through and file off all the protrusions except for the first two. Leave just those two for locks that might have a double locking mechanism like this one does. So you can actually make your own warded lock picks if you can't afford to go out and buy a set of warded lock picks. But there's an even cheaper approach because this necessitates having a lock, or at least having the keys to a warded lock that you can make your own skeleton keys or warded picks from. The other approach that I use is this. This is the top of a coat hanger. This is the hook from a coat hanger. Cut it off here. Cut it off with a pair of wire cutters. And then I bent this somewhat straight so that I have a straight section that's roughly the same length as the shaft of a key. Have a straight section. And then the tip I bent outwards so I have a protrusion to work against the mechanism that actually actuates the lock. Now you'll notice that there's only one protrusion here. And so that means that for this lock, because it has two mechanisms that need to be actuated, I'm going to need to open or release one and then move to the next one and open and release that. It's a little bit like single pin picking in that regard, a regular pin tumbler lock, because you have to apply tension or pressure so that once you've set a pin, it doesn't drop back into the keyway as soon as you stop touching it. So instead of torquing it with rotational tension, what we're going to be doing is applying tension that same way that I showed earlier. I'm pulling on the shaft, on the shackle of the lock with my index finger. I'm pushing against the body of the lock with my middle finger and my thumb. And that's providing tension so that as I go to the bottom of the lock, did you hear that click? That was the first mechanism being actuated. And then I pull my tool out a little bit and I fish around inside for the second mechanism. And you hear that click, and now we have it open. And my best friend always does a celebratory swivel every time getting lock open. So celebratory swivel. Yay. So let me lock that up again. And let's go through that again. And I'll be quiet this time so you can actually hear it release. Celebratory swivel. So so with just a simple tool and the right technique, the right tensioning technique. In this case, the tensioning technique is our non-picking hand. I'm left-handed, and so I pick with my left hand. You probably noticed in the previous video that I hold the pick in my left hand. So the tension is being applied against the shackle as opposed to being applied against a tension tool that I might be pressing with my thumb or my index finger as I try to pick single pin pick. Instead, we're applying tension to the shackle so that the cut in the shackle is actually pressing against the locking mechanism. And so that means that as soon as we release that locking mechanism, that the tension of pulling on the shackle like this of pulling on the shackle, the tension is keeping the locking mechanism from closing back in to the cut in the shackle. You can see the cut there, and there's a cut on the other side of the shackle too. So by pulling out, we're preventing the locking mechanism from closing back in into those cuts in the shackle. And there you have it. Warded locks opened with a coat hanger, the hook from a coat hanger that I cut and formed my own tool with. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and leave a comment or a question below. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like this. Until the next video, happy picking y'all.